Hi Chris, how are you?
Good afternoon, Rod. Yeah, all is well. I think this is our usual entry, isn't it? You always ask how I am. I'm all right. It's episode 185. I've just written it's the 5th of August. It's not the 5th of August. It's the 11th of August. And
It is absolutely the 11th of August. So I don't know where the 5th of August came from. Is that wishful thinking? You were wishing you were a bit younger?
It's 6 days. That was my wedding anniversary. That's why I stumbled as I said it. So I was like, no, I did remember my wedding anniversary. That was last week.
It's just stuck in your head now. That's it. It's your wedding anniversary.
100%. So, and the weather is muggy, as per usual lately.
Yeah, it was muggy last week as well. I think I questioned what we meant by muggy, but yeah, I agree with you this week. It's overcast, it's humid, it's not very nice. Hot.
No, and tomorrow, worse. So, looking forward to that.
I'm fine with it being hot if the sun actually shines, but I don't want to be hot just with like a cloud layer. What's the point of that?
I completely agree with you. So, yeah, it's a bit something and nothing.
Something and nothing. Should we do some follow-up?
Let's dive into it.
So first up, we have Apple working with these apps. This is an article in 95 Mac by Zach Hall from yesterday. These apps to prepare for next-gen Siri. I've seen a bit of stuff about this week, that next-gen Siri is coming. Apple have made some changes to work with the new model from ChatGPT. I think it's their 5 model. There was an 04, I think, and now there's a 5 model.
I hate ChatGPT numbering. I don't understand it.
It makes no sense at all. I did see that it broke a lot of people's apps, though. 5 is in some ways slower and less clever than 04. So actually ChatGPT brought back, or OpenAI brought back the 4 model, which was, I suppose, good.
It's good they brought it back, but it's also an admission of the new hotness isn't that hot.
Well, the whole move fast and break things definitely seems to be a factor of these LLM-based models. And the thing is, if you're building against a particular model and they move it around all the time, which this is a fast-moving field at the moment, it doesn't surprise me they're moving things. Don't rely on it, maybe?
Yeah, that is true. And surely developers say which model they're going to use, and then they have to opt in. I don't know, and they get a grace window before they're forced. You'd have thought.
It doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me, particularly as they're blooming wrong half the time anyway, as we see with a lot of these things. Then, you're building on shifting sand, so just prepare for it.
Yeah, it's quite challenging. But look, what I think is good here is there's a lot of talk about next-gen Siri, because Siri, I was thinking about this the other day. I think I used Siri today for pretty much what I used it for when it debuted. Set some timers and play me some music. That's pretty much all I use it for with my HomePods and my actual phone. I don't actually ask it to do anything because it's quicker to go and do it myself. So they've got to do something with it. And hopefully this is that. And it's going to be good. And it's good they're working with other companies and not just doing it on their own. So they're saying here they're working with, I think it's Uber and YouTube and Amazon, Facebook, WhatsApp, Threads, Temu. I don't even know what Temu is. All Trails, but it's good. They're not just doing it in isolation and then foisting it upon people. Hopefully, they're doing it in partnership with these companies, and actually, it's going to be good rather than just something Apple does and maybe it doesn't stick or isn't actually any good.
So this is actually making use of their app intent system, which is something they announced at WWDC, I think, where it's like LLM-based hooks.
They kind of announced it a year ago and nothing happened, and then they've re-announced, haven't they?
Well, it's because Siri's garbage, hot garbage, as you sort of hinted at the start of this, that nobody trusts Siri to do anything. Some people don't even trust it to set timers, although that is probably my largest use case, is set a timer for X minutes when I'm cooking chicken or whatever.
It does get it wrong every now and again.
Yeah, and the whole play thing, I mean, I only ever ask it to play something I'd like, which is a phrase I got from you, I think. I didn't know it could do that before.
The biggest one I use is play something I like, and then occasionally goes, playing the Like album by somebody I've never heard of. And I was like, no, I always ask you just to play some music I like. Like, that's literally your only job.
Yeah, I occasionally try start a playlist from band X, and that is successful maybe 30% of the time. Even if it's a well-known band like Muse or something like that, it will fail to do it 70% of the time.
For that one, I just say play some Stereophonics music or Muse music or whatever it may be.
But you don't want to sometimes I'll want something that starts by a Foo Fighters track or something like that and then goes on to suggest other bands like it, which is inspired by works quite well, or start a radio station from, and it will do that for you 30% of the time. It's very unreliable.
It's so frustrating, isn't it?
It's funny, I have in the car, I have Google and YouTube Music built in, and it works 99.9% of the time. I ask it to play a band, it plays it. I ask it to play a song, it plays it. I ask for my super mix, it does it. I ask it to navigate. The coolest thing the other day, we're going slightly off on a tangent about Siri, but when I was driving home last weekend, I asked it to show me chargers near Dunoon, and I was on the other side of the river, and it did for the car.
That's quite cool.
Even though I was navigating somewhere else at the time. I was very impressed.
Yeah, that is quite cool.
You wouldn't trust Siri to do that, would you?
No, I wouldn't even bother asking. That's the problem I have with that. I won't even try these things because I know it would just wind me up.
So Siri is a problem, but the next generation has this app intents built into it where Siri will be able to build Apple will be able to build whatever the next generation of Siri looks like, which I'm sure there's an article in here, or there's an article I read this week that they're expecting as early as spring next year. And I'm thinking, that's not early.
I think that's the right timeline, though, given where we were. Don't want to rush it. Take your time, get it right.
Sure, but they announced this last year, like you said, and that'll be almost 2.5 years by the point that they get to as early as.
I still think that's fine. I'd rather them not rush it.
Whatever. This app intent system is like programming hooks for an LLM model. As you've said, it's going to work with all these third parties. I think Temu's a shopping site in China.
Sounds like a shopping site.
Yeah. All these things, new app intents, so you'll be able to ask for, presumably, read my last 6 WhatsApps or start a new message to whatever on WhatsApp. You can kind of do this a little bit now in Siri, although I equally don't find it very reliable. I suppose this is a good thing.
It's got to be a good thing, isn't it? Because third-party integration with Siri's never been there. So it's got to be good that they're actually doing this. And we're, 14 years into Siri at this point.
Yeah, and there is nothing more frustrating, and again, it's a car thing, when you ask Siri in the car to do something for you, like navigate to somewhere or ring somebody, and it goes, you need to unlock the phone to do that, and at that point, you've lost me.
I would never even think to ask it to do it. I would just usually type on the keyboard on the screen before I go, or use my phone before I leave. If I'm making a call, I just use my phone book or my recents, and that's it.
It's hard when you're driving, though. I mean, that's meant to be the joy of CarPlay. Is you should be able to shout out into the air, play me X podcast in Overcast, and most times it'll go, you need to unlock it, and I'll have permission.
I will just tap the screen.
That's madness.
Agreed.
Shall we move on?
Yep, let's do it.
Let's stick with some madness. And we had the Beta 5, or the various things came out last week, one of which was for macOS Tahoe 26 Beta 5. And causing controversy, as well as just the overall design of Liquid Glass, is they changed the hard drive icon. And I'm a bit sad about it, really.
I'm amazed the old hard drive icon persisted. So it looks like a spinning hard drive that we would have had 10 years ago, 15 years ago. The new one looks like nothing, because new hard drives aren't really that iconic. But it just looks weird. The perspective's all weird. The Apple logo's too straight on, and I don't know. The whole perspective of the new logo just looks weird. And it's got some random black holes at the bottom of it, whereas your Apple SSD is just like a chip on the chip. So it's just very bizarre how they've done it. It's super weird. I agree with you. The vanishing point of this is all wrong. Yeah, the perspective just feels like something I would have drawn.
Well, I was about to say, this looks like something that ChatGPT would give you if you said, please design me a representation of a modern drive or something like that. That's got with an Apple logo blatted on at the top of it. The old hard drive, and let's face it, you're quite right, hard drives haven't been in Macs for, I don't know, it's not as long as we think. It's about 7 years, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, something. It's been a while, but it depends if you paid the extra money and all of that.
But what it's meant to represent is the internal drive on your device. This looks like an external SSD with a couple of random holes, like an old LaCie external drive from a couple of years ago or something like that.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And it's just, I don't know, it just looks like nothing. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been replaced with a sleeker aluminium-looking enclosure with rounded edges and a big Apple logo, according to 9to5Mac. And I suppose, I'm not sure about sleeker. It's just, it doesn't obviously look like a spinning mechanical hard disk anymore. And frankly, I don't know what it looks like.
It doesn't look, well, I guess that's the problem. It just doesn't look like anything, does it?
No, it's rubbish. And this has caused controversy, and you would have thought a company with the resources of Apple that cares allegedly as much about the user interface as they do could come up with something better than this. The icons in Tahoe have been absolutely dreadful. We talked about AirDrop last week. We've got the hard drive icon this week, the internal drive icon this week. What are we going to get next week? What else are they going to break?
I think they should have done all the redesign all at once. I think they should have phased it, going, look, we're moving to one consistent interface across all our platforms. They've now I think I talked about this. They've nailed tvOS. They've nailed CarPlay. I think I say nailed. It's way better than it was. Done. They should have done iOS, and they should have just done this properly and thought it through. But I find when you look at somebody running Windows 11, you look at their icons and they're not all the same shape, and they actually look really good. I'm like, oh, why can't we have those icons? They look really good. But the Mac's actually got worse icons, and the Mac was famous for having amazing icons, and they've just ruined it.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's very poor design. Something else that's very poor is apps getting rejected from the App Store, which we've talked about repeatedly. I think in this case they're talking about the app Screens. I think you're a Screens user, aren't you?
Yep, I have Screens on my devices, so I can remote on. It works with tail scale. It's really, really good. And I was surprised to see this because I do use Screens, but I guess if it's been rejected, I wouldn't have known an update's been rejected because I wouldn't have seen it.
I just think it's poor show where you've got an app, particularly a long-standing app that's been approved time after time after time, gets rejected for, in this case it was rejected by the App Store team for asking users to opt in to share anonymous statistical data. What's the problem with that?
And you're asking users to opt in. You're asking them. You're not just
So
doing it, you're asking them. And
so
it'd been like it for a year, and then they rejected it. Bizarre.
Opted out by default, absolutely the right way to go. You opted, unlike Apple things, which just opt you in automatically and don't tell you when you have actually been opted in, if you remember that scandal from about 18 months ago, and all the voice collections with Siri and all that kind of stuff. This is a developer doing the right thing who's long-standing, trusted developer, and you reject his app.
It's not good, is it?
It's just follows a pattern of, I don't know what the hell they're doing over there in App Review. On one hand, when Phil Schiller took over it and everything got faster, everybody was very happy. But the rejections just seem to have become ever more bizarre.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. There still is odd rejections, and it's a lack of consistency. I think that's the bigger problem.
Yeah, very much so. So, sort your life out, Apple. You should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time when you're like the third biggest company in the world.
And you got all the money.
Yeah. Employ people. Give it to an LLM. Do something, but do better.
I'm sure they should give it to one of their homegrown LLMs right now.
Maybe they already have. Maybe that's what happened.
Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe Siri did it.
Oh, my lordy. Siri approves it all.
So we've been a bit down on Apple, so I think it's only fair we're very down on Microsoft for a little bit. A couple of things with Microsoft this week and follow up. So the first one is apparently some German security researchers have found some fairly serious flaws in Windows Hello. This is an article in The Verge from the 7th of August. So Windows Hello is the biometric login mechanism for Windows. It either uses a particular type of camera of a particular security level or a fingerprint authentication or something like that to let you sign into Windows.
Yep, and it has a PIN code backup, doesn't it?
So it falls back to a PIN code or a security phrase or something like that if you don't want a PIN code. I think they prompt you for a PIN code, which can be 4 letters, which I guess if you've got a dirty keyboard attached to your desktop PC is probably not the most useful 4 numbers in the world.
Yeah, that's very true. It can be quite obvious what you've always pressed.
As with smartphone screens, where you can see the keys that are pressed most frequently, although that's got a bit better with some of the oligophobic screens and all the rest of it. But this was a German bunch of hackers who'd managed to find a way to inject biometric information into a computer that would allow it to recognize any face or fingerprint. So if your corporate structure is based on Windows Hello being the most secure thing in the world, this is really bad. Yeah,
it's not a good sign, is it, that it's possible just to hack away at it, and a lot of organisations are using it. Microsoft have been pushing it for quite a while, and moving away from passwords. It's a bit worrying that these 2 researchers on stage stood there and demonstrated live how easy it was to circumvent it.
I apologise. There's an ice cream van going past outside. If anybody managed to hear some tinkly bells, that might be a uniquely British thing.
I was going to say, spoiler alert for Google Meet. I can't hear any of it, so it's fine.
Oh, that's good to know. It might make it into my end of the recording, though. So it's going to be difficult to fix, and Microsoft hasn't responded as the be-all and the end of it. And again, security is hard. I have a concern in a world where LLMs are writing more and more code for things and as we saw with the T hack from when things are vibe coded, that the security isn't always foremost in people's minds when they do these kinds of things. For a company like Microsoft, it absolutely should be. So if you're relying on this as part of your corporate infrastructure security model, just to be safe and for your users to have secure logins at whatever terminal, wherever in the world, and something as relatively simple as this can be implemented on it, then you've got serious problems in your hands.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. It's it's not a great look for Microsoft One out at the moment.
It's not. Moving on, and another article from the Register, and this isn't a a fact. This is just an opinion piece by the journalist Rupert Goodwins from the 8th of August. And what he's proposing really is that in light of everything that we've been talking about over the last few, months and years, frankly, is that the UK particularly, and probably other countries if you read it, and it's a very long article, that you need to be thinking of a Microsoft exit. He calls it Mexit, not Brexit, is the priority for the UK. And his sort of, the root of his argument is that data sovereignty that we talked about last week, where Microsoft can't guarantee that a country's sovereign data remains resident within that country, which is breaching all sorts of data protection laws, never mind our ridiculous laws here in the UK. But it's sort of the tip of the iceberg for what's going on around the world. And if you can't guarantee that in something like Microsoft Azure, this becomes more of a problem. And you and I have said repeatedly on this podcast, what's the cost of getting out? It's too safe, I think, for corporate buyers just to go, well, Microsoft's the right way. It ticks this box, that box, and the other thing, and we just go with it, rather than thinking, okay, it might cost a little more in the short term in terms of user training, setting up our own clouds, running our own servers, all the rest of it. But what will the ultimate cost be when Microsoft triple their licensing in 5 years? You only need to look at the VMware licensing scandal to see it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that they'll do that.
Yeah, I think the problem here is, and it's not just getting out of Microsoft, whatever, system corporations did, purchase, or even us as home users, we talked again about playing with other devices at home, like, should I try an Android device? It's extremely hard for me to do that. And it's that cost of exit, and it's the same for corporations. And I think it's a big thing for corporations. What is the cost of exit if your business model change, or the business model of the company you're buying something from changes? How do you move? And it's hard. It's really hard, because something like removing Microsoft or watering down your Microsoft reliance is going to impact every employee usually in these organizations, because it'll be their Windows desktop, it'll be their Office package, it'll be their email package, it'll be their authentication. It's just everything. And Microsoft have nailed it.
But that's it. I mean, we talk about Apple's walled garden all the time. Microsoft are the masters of this, frankly. That if you look at Teams, for example, as an implementation, release it for free, get people dependent on it. Oh, the pandemic came at the same time, which helped a little bit. But, it'll integrate with your phones, it integrates with your Active Directory. It's just a simple thing to do. Now we're going to start charging for it. We're going to pump up your client access license. It's all just a bit dishonest. And when you become so reliant on something, and another good example is Microsoft Outlook. It's just an email server, but they won't let you run it on premises anymore. They just deprecate all the time the sort of fancy things that it can do and push you towards the cloud. Great, now you're a Microsoft 365. Right now, we'll chuck some Copilot at you. It's only going to be another £5. But added together, and you know this better than me, by the time you pay your SQL Server licensing, your Exchange licensing, your Teams licensing, your client access licensing, your Microsoft Dynamics, all that kind of stuff, no matter how big a corporation you are, that has £1 per employee that you will continue to pay on an annual basis for whatever. If you're a bigger company, you get a bigger discount, but fundamentally, you're paying it.
It certainly takes up the lion's share of the budget, because your just core costs is, you've got single supply dependency ones if they have an outage, etc. It's a huge part, because they are just slowly getting you for more and more systems, because it all plays nicely together.
Yep. So, I mean, you're kind of a hostage to fortune on that. And that's why, I don't think it comes out particularly well in this article, but I think can you change one thing within your organization that sort of reduces that dependence a little bit? And be it just, right, we're going to use LibreOffice instead of Word or something like that, and just begin the process of seeing how that will impact you over the period of time and have that sort of contingency. I think it's just, nobody's going to do it, but I think it's worth thinking about from the point of view that, as we've seen with a slightly controversial American government, you can give you that moment of pause where all your eggs are in one basket. And, should they whip the basket away from you, what are you going to do? And that's going to be that a university, be that the military in the UK, be that a reliance on selling off bits of the NHS to companies like Palantir. I think we do need to consider stuff like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on this one. I think the cost of exit is a huge thing that a lot of companies just don't worry about, and they just worry about moving forwards, not what is the cost of coming off this, and whether it's to save money or because the principles don't align or whatever it may be. It's just something that people don't deal with.
Yeah, they punt it on to the next people, don't they?
Yep.
Speaking of punting it on, and we've talked about it before, and I'm not going to make any comment about it, it's just to say one of the things that is being stored in Azure servers is all the Palestinian phone calls that are taking place inside of that particular action at the moment. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, Microsoft infrastructure is helping with that particular effort. And I just think that's an interesting call for what you're going to happen with your Azure data, because presumably all of this data is also completely accessible to, various servers around Microsoft and across the world. And I wonder if the Israeli government's pleased with that.
It's not good, is it? It's really not good look for Microsoft. But I don't know what you do here. I don't know. How do they start cutting them off? How does all that work? Would they then be in breach of contract and then getting sued? It's really complicated, isn't it?
Well, we saw the other side of it, didn't they? Where they barred the email address of the European Commission judges' email address. So fair's fair, I guess. If you're going to store one side of it, then you cut off the other side. I don't know how that works, but interesting times, I think, for tech. This isn't something that would have happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where an active operations data would be stored inside a foreign country's cloud. It's quite a thing.
It's quite a thing. What happens if they ever go to war against each other? That would be quite
well. It would be quite a thing, wouldn't it? But imagine the data that Microsoft and as an extension, the United States government have on Palestinians and on the Israeli intelligence efforts at this point. It's really quite an eye-opening concept.
Yeah, the amount of data Microsoft, if they wanted to, could pull together across all the corporations and all the governments that they're dealing with. They must have an amazing view of the world.
But this is it exactly. If you're the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, or pick your three-letter agency of choice, you can presumably wade in and demand access to that as they're an American company and the data exists in American servers. So in this case, we're talking about Israelis recording Palestinian calls. But in the wider world, what does that look like? What can it be linked to? Could you track individual Israeli or Palestinian citizens around based on this? If they're storing the Palestinian side of it, presumably they're storing their own government side of it as well. So it's just a fascinating thing to consider what gets stored inside of computers these days.
I completely agree with you.
Anyway, let's move on and do some news, shall we?
Let's do it.
So first up, and sort of the biggest story of the week, really, which immediately led to the second one, is Apple announced a new $100 billion US commitment to chip investment in the United States for manufacturing, and as a response, it got 100% chip tariff exemption. Wow.
Yeah, weirdly, Donald and Tim seem best buddies, don't they?
They're pretty happy there, I think. I mean, Donald how tall is Donald meant to be? He's meant to be super tall, right?
Yeah,
he's like 6. Tim Cook must be pretty tall then.
Tim Cook, I think he's quite tall and very thin.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite sort of different personalities based on that. Anyway, this is an announcement for the American manufacturing program, $100 billion to its previously pledged $500 billion investment. It has a nice side effect for Apple that they get out of having to pay the chip tariffs, so that'll give them a massive advantage compared to other companies like Framework, for example, that are going to pay an import tax, whose customers are going to be paying an import tax for sort of any things imported from India or China or elsewhere. So on one hand, you could say, well done, Tim, good deal, well done.
It does look like it's the right thing, but it doesn't feel like the right thing, does it?
No, because the second part of the deal at the same time is that Tim gifted Donald a 24-karat gold statue made of Corning Gorilla Glass with the big Apple logo on it, signed by Tim Cook to President Donald Trump, with a 24-karat gold base.
Which says made in USA.
Yeah, and this bit I've got problems with.
I'm surprised it didn't say designed in California, made in the USA, which is like Apple's standard thing, isn't it?
It is. I mean, he looks delighted. And apparently he won't keep this himself. It'll go in the Trump Presidential Library when that becomes a thing.
Okay, brilliant.
On one hand, this is an amazing move by a CEO to keep his company exempt and from those economic headwinds we hear so much about. That tariffs could have affected Apple massively. There's chips and all their things. They import they import 100% of them, I think, from India and China. This manufacturing program, I think, will move some assembly of components together. But by giving this gift and $100 billion that presumably they were already going to do, Apple has done this kind of stuff, contributing to American manufacturing before. They've guaranteed themselves a get-out-of-jail-free card, and particularly as Donald wasn't particularly pleased with Tim for not coming to was it Saudi Arabia with him or the United Arab Emirates?
Like that. He's got a short memory though, so I think it's fine.
This isn't fine though. This is flat out bribery and corruption, isn't it? This is gifting the dictator.
But that's what it feels like. That's what you got to do. When's Meta going to give him some Ray-Bans that are gold and emblazoned with Zuckerberg's signature? It just feels like this is what you got to do to get through, and it's just all feels a bit weird.
Yeah, so there's competing thoughts about this. Part of it is this is just Tim doing the best thing for Apple. On the other side is this is absolutely gross, and there's no way a corporation of Apple's size should be. I'll call it kissing the ring. And I'll let people judge whatever they want from what ring's being kissed. Yeah, quite a thing.
I think he is doing the right thing because it feels like it's what all the companies are doing now for Apple. But it seems to be the way you've got to do it to suck up. You've got to, get your gifts out there, and I just don't know. It feels like we've gone back to medieval times, maybe.
I don't know. Once you start paying out, you never stop paying out. And
what's the next president's going to do? And the president after that, is this going to get worse?
Yeah, I think it sets a dangerous precedent. The universities that have sort of caved into what Trump wanted are still paying. The ones that haven't, Harvard, have stopped paying. There is the Trump always chickens out thing as well, that if they just said no and stuck to their guns, maybe he'd have just chickened out and Apple wouldn't have had to pay the tariffs either. I just feel this is an absolute mess, and the senior governmental figure in the United States shouldn't be taking these kinds of incentives. I'm trying not to call it what
I would agree with you. It just doesn't feel right, and it's in a lot of corporations that you and I probably worked for. This isn't allowed to happen. This is seen as active bribery.
I mean, it's an awful lot less than a 747 from the United Arab Emirates, but it's still a gift.
It is still a gift. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, so I feel I'm distasteful of the whole thing. I think it's a very bad look for Apple. The previous $1 million for taking part in the investiture ceremony could have been passed off as Tim's money, but this has got a giant honking Apple logo on it. This can't be seen to be anything other than a direct gift from the company.
Agreed.
So nasty, horrible. I don't like it. And there we go. It's just as well I wasn't planning on going to America this year because I don't think our commentary would have gone down well.
Do you think Tim is going to stay now for the next 4 years to see this term of president through?
I suspect that he absolutely will now.
It does feel like it, doesn't it?
If the brand is tainted, and for some people the brand will be tainted, even more tarnished than it was before with what's going on, that tarnish could be associated with Tim, and he can leave at the end of this, and hopefully whoever replaces him, can start afresh and leave all this stuff behind. Yep.
No, I think we're agreed.
Assuming that this isn't corporate policy from Apple, as you said a minute ago, this is just what they'll do from now on, and they'll grease the wheels of industry.
Yeah, I do worry this is the future.
I mean, the worry is that what you're doing is America's becoming some. I want to be very careful what I say. Sort of grubby third world state where the corruption is so endemic that you've got to just pay all the way up, and I never assumed America was like that, or maybe it's just part of the tipping culture. I don't know.
I don't know. I wonder though, will other countries go this way? We could be doing the same thing.
Again, and not to be too negative, I love Americans. I just think your choice of government at the moment is slightly problematic.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that statement.
Moving on, as we get ourselves in ever hotter water, I just think this pour one out for dial-up. So this is a story that AOL is ending its dial-up internet service in September, 34 years after its debut. Did you ever use AOL? We had it in the UK too.
I never used AOL, but I love this article. It's got a picture of a US robotics modem, which was like the one to have, wasn't it? I haven't used AOL. I'm amazed this dial-up service is still running. There can't be many customers on it, surely. I don't know. But I guess America is a big country. Could it, I guess, and same here in the UK, there are some remote areas that maybe haven't got broadband yet.
I think it's entirely possible.
Are there some like legacy systems, like you hear about airplanes needing floppy disks? Are there some really old legacy systems that still need a dial-up connection that just haven't ever been upgraded? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I got to think it's possible. It's funny, I used to run a dial-in server in my previous job in the NHS. We had a couple of phone lines ready just so I could dial in should the broadband VPN connection go wrong. So I'd always have a fallback, so I knew how to do it at both ends. Yep. It wasn't that hard to do, to be honest, but it sounds better than it was. But yeah, I mean, It's very slow. It's very old-fashioned. We thought we were the bee's knees when we got 56K. I'm probably a little bit older than you, so I do remember the days of installing a PCI card into my computer that gave me 28K dial-up, and I actually used, the first thing I used was CompuServe, not AOL.
Yeah, I think I was FreeServe here in the UK, and then we had like Virgin were quite big, I think. I can't really remember. But my brother used to work for a modem company that ended up becoming part of 3Com and then part of USR, I think. And so, yeah, we had like a 14.4 or 28.8 modem. It was like 36.6, and then we just plateaued at 56, didn't we?
Yeah, that's probably as fast as you could make the audio tones squeal down the thing. But the dial-up sound was what will always stay with me. And I'd know whether it was going to connect properly from the noises it was making. I was so used to it.
In our house, you had to reel out the cable and go and plug it into the computer because the phone line was in a different room. Yeah, we weren't geared up for it. There was no wireless. There was no Ethernet. I was explaining this to my children, and they're like, "What? You didn't just go online all the time?" And it was like, "No, like you had to use it, and there was a penny a minute here in the UK, so it was very different."
It was very different, and it's funny because they had free local phone calls in America, so people could just dial up and leave them connected, where I was always very conscious of how long I was on the phone for.
Yep, same here. You're always really super conscious. Is it all right if I use the phone? And I won't be too long. I just want to check some stuff.
Yeah. Those were the days, but, I don't think we'll miss its passing too much.
I would imagine very few people, there can't be many people using this at all.
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. So it's got to be at least 20 years since I used the dial-up connection.
University for me, with you, was when we first got broadband for me. It was in 2001 too.
Yeah, so we're in the same neck of the world, aren't we? 20 odd years.
Yeah, 20 odd years, I'd say.
There we go. Back to Donald Trump briefly. We should probably have grouped all these together. But earlier last week, Trump called for the resignation of the Intel chief executive officer, saying he was conflicted. CEO is Lip Bhutan. He said he was deeply conflicted from ties to China. And again, I'm not sure that the chief executive of the United States should be calling for the resignation of chief executive officers of any companies, never mind one as big as Intel.
It's not a great look, especially when he's shaking hands with the Apple chief exec as well. It's all a bit of a strange look, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, he's come back and said no, basically. He's not conflicted. The US has been his home for 4 years. He loves the country. He's very grateful. And basically, he upholds the highest legal and ethical standards. And what else is he going to say? Of course he's got to say that.
So, of course he's going to say that. He's going to come back and go, look, why would he call for my resignation? I'm a great upstanding citizen. And he's emailed his staff and team and pointed these things out. It's not a good look, is it? Like I say, he shouldn't be calling for somebody to leave. A great corporation like Intel. So I'm a bit disappointed that it's got this far, especially in one breath. He's shaking hands with Tim Cook and receiving his trophy. Maybe Intel need to give him some microprocessor with Trump on it emblazoned in gold, and that'll all be good.
I think there's a fair bit of gold in chip manufacturing, isn't there? And I think Intel have got bigger problems, as we've talked about previously with the manufacture of the chips and how they're falling behind. They don't need turmoil in the boardroom as well.
Yeah, this isn't really helping at all, is it? So it just feels like more noise when they should be focusing on their core business or getting back to their core business.
Absolutely. And sticking with chip manufacturing, NVIDIA and AMD have also reportedly chipped into Washington's coffers with a 15% fee for China sales, which presumably also means that they're going to be exempt from the worst excesses of tariffs.
Yeah, no big shocks here, is there really? I don't think. It's kind of what we expect.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's hail to the chief, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of business that I don't like, but it seems to be what you got to do now.
But it is interesting that, NVIDIA is absolutely responsible for the boom in LLM workflows. It certainly makes them faster if you've got a fast GPU, and AMD make GPUs and CPUs as well, so makes sense. Slightly shady business, I've got to say.
Well, if anybody's got the money to pony up for Washington, it's going to be NVIDIA, isn't it? They've had a cracking year or two.
Yeah, although there is a ban for NVIDIA selling chips to China. I suspect China gets the NVIDIA chips by hook or by crook one way or another. It's overall putting a chip ban on, but I presume you can sell them to, I don't know, the Philippines, and maybe there's agents in the Philippines can pick them up and ship them to China. I don't know. But
That's kind of happening already, though, isn't it? So,
well, if we recall, not that long ago, Russians got hold of M4 MacBook Airs before they were released around the rest of the world. They ended up in a pallet and they ended there. So stuff gets around the world, be you have an export ban or not. So they may as well, Nvidia should be allowed to make the money out of it if it's happening anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
There we go. And last story in news, and it's a bit of a sad one, but at the same time I was quite impressed. James Lovell, famous for Apollo 13, has died at the ripe old age of 97, and I just think that's incredible.
What an age, and what world he's seen, if you think 97 years old, think of that, all the change that's happened in that period. And, he went to the moon partway through. So what a life. And, famously on Apollo 13, which nearly obviously didn't come home.
Yeah, he's famous twice. He was part of the first crew to make the first dark side of the moon transit. He was the first crew to go into the moon lunar orbit as well. So he did that, and then he was scheduled to land on Apollo 13. And Apollo 13 is famously the NASA mission where they set out to prove that there was nothing unlucky about 13. So it took off at 1300 on the 13th and was Apollo 13, and there was all these 13s, and everything went wrong.
And it was an amazing film with Tom Hanks, and people should go watch. I did suggest to my son, who's wanting to watch more adult films, maybe we could watch Apollo 13 because it's such a good film. So I don't know whether it'll be too slow for him. He's of the generation where he wants everything now, but it's such a good film.
No, it's a great film. And through reading one of the articles related to this, I discovered one of the later Blu-ray releases has an audio commentary of Jim Lovell and his wife over the top of Apollo 13, and I'd really like to hear that.
Yeah, that is quite cool, actually. That would be quite enjoyable, I think.
Yep. What a guy. Well done. And amazing to have lived as long as him and Buzz Aldrin must be two of the longest lived, very dynamic characters that I can think of, really.
Yep, no, agreed.
There's only David Attenborough, really.
Is he more famous here, though, than anywhere else?
I think his voice is still pretty famous. I think they get, Alec Baldwin to dub the Planet Earth stuff in America, but I'm sure his voice has made it onto other documentaries than just ours.
Okay.
Anyway, well done, James Lovell. Rest in peace.
Agreed.
Should we do some media?
Yeah, I think we're looking at you this week predominantly.
It's all me. It's all on me. It's not all on me. It's all on James Bond, because I finally continued the next episode in my epic James Bond rewatch, and I watched The Spy Who Loved Me, Roger Moore's third film as Bond, from 1977. And the critics liked this a little bit more at 82% Rotten Tomatoes, 77% with the audience, and I think the audience is a little generous. There's some iconic stuff in this film. 1977, in some ways it doesn't look that old, this film. In other ways, particularly the cars and vans and things, it absolutely does. Yeah,
I was just refreshing my memory, and this is one where he's got the bass that comes out of the water at the end and stuff. I thought this one was okay, if memory serves, and it's got a Lotus in it that goes underwater, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I have a really fond memory of this film. I think I must have watched it most growing up. I thought it was really cool, the underwater car. There's an amazing sequence involving a chase of the Lotus with a helicopter and a motorcycle that's got a missile built into it, and then out to the underwater base, and then they do some stuff with divers, and then he just drives out onto the beach and hands a bloke a fish. And that bloke shows up in one of the later films, Moonraker, I think, when he comes across a piazza in Venice. And he breaks a bottle of wine. So there's a couple of callbacks. There's a couple of callbacks from The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. Not the least of which is Jaws, the bad guy in The Spy Who Loved Me, also pops up in Moonraker.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about Jaws, I must confess.
And this is a thing where Bond started getting a bit silly. I think they've realised a lot of the gadgets and things like that were silly.
Yeah.
And it lost, not that the others were massively real, but if you look at From Russia With Love and... the other On Her Majesty's Secret Service, there was more of a nod to realism in them than there was. I think post Goldfinger it all got a bit silly, but it gets particularly silly with the original Roger Moore ones.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I should go back and watch these at some point, but it's a long way off at the minute. I did start Mission Impossible. I watched the first one, and I haven't got any further. That's
fair enough. Having said that, I enjoyed watching it again. There's some really nice bits in it. The whole Cold War thing, remembering Russia was still a thing even in 1977 when it looked so modern in many ways, is really good. Not a bad film. The rear projection on a lot of the stunts for Roger Moore and things is really bad, even though the stunts themselves are really good. And the miniatures, like the underwater base and the submarines and things, are really well done.
Yeah, it's interesting watching older films to see how they've aged, because it can be 50-50 sometimes, I think.
Yep, I can. Moving on, bit of television. It came back a couple of weeks ago, but I've only just got round to it. Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. Even if you're not a Star Trek fan, I think it's a great place to start at Strange New Worlds. Get Paramount for a week or something like that and sort of blitz your way through them. It won't take very long. There's not many. There's only 3 seasons, and there's only 8 or 10 episodes per season, I think. As you'll see from this, critics love it. 96% for Strange New Worlds.
That's high.
It's really good. It's essential Star Trek, I'd call it. It's got enough of the drama of space opera. It's got some comedy in there. It's got some really sort of standout moments, and you wouldn't believe how good the special effects are for a television show. It also, Anson Mount's hair, who plays Captain Pike, I want his hair. In fact, they released a little 4-minute video of how to do what they call Pike's Peak to Anson Mount's hair, which I really enjoyed. But it's fantastic Star Trek. It tells the story of before the original series, before Kirk and all that. But so some of the characters are there that you know, like Spock is in it, Uhura is in it, people like that will have made it to the films, even if that's all you've watched of Star Trek. With the original Enterprise. It's just great fun television. I'd recommend anybody who wants just 45 minutes of fun, give it a go.
Okay, good recommendation.
Thank you. And Severance.
I touched on it last week. I was nearly finished, and I finally finished Severance season 2. Fantastic. Loved it. Actually really good. I think they landed it really well. And I said to you, I hope they don't do too many of them and spoil it, because that would be a shame. But they did a really good job, I think, with season 2. You still don't know what the hell's going on half the time. Just really well done and put together. And I like that every time you started an episode, it kind of threw you a little bit, because all the episodes were quite good and self-contained. I thought that was quite neat.
Yeah, I mean, having the history of everything that's gone on absolutely helps. But
yeah, a lot
there
more
were
background.
There were some real standout things of, you know, characters' proper background, where they came from, the villages they grew up in, how they used to work for the company. Again, I think Adam Scott, and I've forgotten the actress's name that plays his other half in that, any other half. Just the most staggering performances, both of them. If I scroll down a bit, Brett Lower and Adam Scott, absolutely knocking it out of the park, particularly in the last couple of episodes. Adam Scott, when he's talking to himself as an innie and an outie via the video camera, it was just phenomenal. I mean, if they don't get all of the Emmys for it, even though I want Slow Horses to do very well, I think Severance deserves to do extremely well.
I think it does, because it's so different and so well executed, and the whole look of it is so cool. Just fantastic.
And I've said that. I don't want to go away from the fact that Trammell Tillman, who plays Milchick, is also absolutely staggeringly good in it too.
He's very good, and it's weirdly scary.
In a very sort of, with a way of bonhomie about him as well. That weirdly scary, while at the same time projecting friendliness. It's really an amazing performance.
It's a very creepy sort of character. He plays really well. It's so well cast. The whole thing's fantastic.
It's terrific. Watch it if you haven't.
Agreed. And I finally got around to it, so it's good news.
I'm glad you have. Anything else in media, or should we do some games?
No, nothing else for me.
Okay, so first up, and I don't have a web page to go to, but let me just do something quickly while we're talking. I tried Diablo 4. So Diablo 4 is a product of Blizzard. You've played a few Blizzard games in your day?
I played largely Warcraft and StarCraft. I did play original Diablo when it first came out.
So original Diablo is sort of a Dungeons and Dragons top-down exploration thing, where you go along and you upgrade your characters using role-playing game elements, and you bash the various beasties till you come to a final boss, and then you move on to the next dungeon. I think that's a fair description of it.
Yeah, no, that's it.
It's very popular. It says in the article here that Diablo 4 has generated $666 million of revenue within the first 6 days of launch. It came to PlayStation, whatever the free monthly thing is that I'm on. I went to launch it, and it immediately asked me to sign into Battle.net, so I just deleted the game.
Oh, wow. You really didn't get very far with it.
It infuriates me. I'm already signed into the PlayStation. Just use my PlayStation credentials. Ask me if you're happy for me to sign in. Don't ask me to sign in to another service.
Yeah, normally they link accounts. EA do this quite a lot. I'm like you, it does infuriate me a little bit.
It's an instant delete from me. If it's going to be hard to do, particularly, didn't throw up a QR code, didn't do anything, just said, sign into your Battle.net account. I'm like, nope, I'm out, gone, bye. So that's a shame.
It is a shame. It's been very good. I've been put off it just because I think it's a massive time sink game, and I just know I won't give it the time it needs.
Yeah, so not for me. But I also think it's one of these where they want you to buy the the horse armor and do the upgrades and get whatever the next skin is for your character, or buy the battle pass. And I'm not in for it for that kind of game.
Yeah, that's fair. I get that. So yeah, it's just not been on my radar.
Having said all that, I'd give a bit of follow-up on, I recommended you should download Battlefield 6 last week for your PlayStation because the public beta was coming out this weekend. The public beta came out this weekend to much wailing and gnashing of teeth because I've popped a screenshot in our show notes, which I won't bring up for the website. But when I tried to get on it, there were 21,960 people in front of me in the queue,
Wow.
which is quite a way. The article said they were adding more servers. Yeah, it's a Battlefield game. I got to say, it's kind of back in the zone of where Battlefield was back in the Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 days. If you ignored, certainly the last two Battlefield games have been fairly rubbish. Battlefield 2142 and Battlefield 5, which was an odd World War II game, weren't great. This is great. It's right back to where it was. It's modern warfare. It's involving, guns and scenarios you'd recognize. One of the levels is set in Gibraltar. One of the levels is set in New York. It uses tanks, aircraft, helicopters, infantry combat. Everything's sort of quite well countered. Because I'm old and my reactions are slow, I die an awful lot, but I had fun when I was doing it. A quick 30 minutes of interesting thing that's happening, and it's not Call of Duty, so I've enjoyed my time with it.
Sounds good. I don't think it's for me, but it does sound good, and it did look good last week when you showed it.
I will say, I don't know what they do with the audio in the Battlefield games, but it sounds incredible. Helicopter flying over your head, bullets whizzing past you with a headset on it. It's got really high quality production sound. And most first person shooters struggle for footstep noises. You can't hear people around you and sort of decide whether they're above you, below you, all that kind of stuff. They're doing a great job with the betas, at least. So I hope they don't break anything before the game releases.
Yeah, that's got to be hard, hasn't it, getting good audio when there's so much going on and you've got to worry about latency and network performance. So it always blows my mind, to be fair.
Yep. So I think it was 64-player maps were what were on. They felt a little bit small, would be my criticism. Battlefield maps are normally vast because you've got very fast-flying aircraft zipping around as well, so they need a bit of space to turn and to run around. But yeah, I was quite impressed. Like I say, it's a bit much for me because I'm getting old, but I did enjoy what I played.
Fair enough. Yeah, like I say, sounds good, but not my world at the minute.
Is Jurassic Park your world?
A little bit. I like the film.
So I know you like a flight simulator. I think your son was going to play
My
one.
son was into flight sims a little bit.
Apparently, they're adding the Jurassic Park Islands to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, which is quite a thing to say, that you're going to be able to fly around those islands.
I think that's quite cool, isn't it?
I think it's quite cool with your Cessna. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 looks fantastic. I did briefly think about should I subscribe to Xbox for a month just so I can at least have a look at it. So it's vaguely in the back of my mind, but I don't really want to give Microsoft any money. But this looks fantastic, doesn't it?
It does look amazing. My son did play it a little bit. It's a cool game. And I think the new one, you don't have to install so much. Like the previous version, you had to install like 100 odd gigabytes, whereas this one's a bit smart about streaming it as you download and stuff.
Yeah, it certainly smashes your internet connection. You wouldn't want to do it with a slow connection. I got to say, when I was flying into Morocco, you fly over the Atlas Mountains to where we were landing in Agadir, and I kind of wanted to try that route as well because it just looked absolutely stunning.
Yeah, okay. I can understand that. And we flew a bit around our house and stuff. It was quite cool to see it.
It is quite cool to see it. And last but not least, did you play Heretic or Hexen back in the day?
I did, but only a little bit.
Oh, right. So Heretic and Hexen were... they used the Doom engine to give you sort of a more fantasy role-playing, swords and sorcery sort of world, really. The company that did it, and I've just completely blanked on them, they went on to do all manner of very clever things with the Doom engine, and Wolfenstein, Raven, went on to do Wolfenstein and all those games as well, and sort of really pushed the Doom engine beyond where it originally started. Heretic and Hexen were great fun. I played both of them all the way through. Anyway, they've received a remaster. I think it's currently 25 quid on Steam, something like that. Sorry, I tell a lie. £13.49 on Steam. So if you want some old school Doom type action with a little more flexibility than the original Doom had, check it out.
That is quite cool. I must confess, while we just mentioned Doom, I did fire up Doom 1 and Doom 2 on my Nintendo Switch 2 because it was a free download. I thought I'd check that out, and it's been slightly remastered, as much as you can remaster those graphics. played all right. But I tried to look up and down. I was like, why can't I look up and down? I want to shoot the guy there. And I thought, oh yeah, there's no looking up and down, because that's what Quake brought, wasn't it? The big thing in Quake, other than the graphics and everything, was you could look up and down. So there you go.
Yeah, it did. There was another game called Revenge of the Triad or something like that.
Oh, that does ring a bell, actually.
Yeah,
Rise of the Triad?
Rise of the Triad, that was it, which had also jump pads as well as looking up and down. Yeah, that's going back in the days. And the other one I really liked from this sort of era was Descent. Do you remember Descent? It was a 3D. The maps were so confusing because the graphics were so poor, but that was really impressive. You played a ship.
Yeah, my friend was amazing at it, but I always struggled just to know where I was going.
Yeah, you needed a joystick with 3 axes because the ship could turn X, Y, and Z axis, unlike Doom, which was just forwards and backwards.
I just can believe I forgot that. It just took me a moment to go, oh yeah, I can't look up and down, and you kind of just shoot vaguely in the direction of the baddie.
Yeah. Those were the days. Anyway, Heretic and Hexen currently cheap due to the Doom sale. The Doom sale, or the ID sale that's going on at the moment. Doom Quake, what's it called? Quake Fest, something like that. There's a particular event going on at the moment that makes use of the engine of a lot of these games. So
I'm going to say QuakeCon.
QuakeCon, that sounds better.
I think that's what it's called.
Good stuff. Should we do a main show?
Yeah, why don't we just touch on the main show briefly?
It's kind of all on you this week.
Yeah, well, you text me and we're like, what are we going to talk about? And I was like, why don't we talk about note-taking? So in a week's time, I'm going to start a new job. Big part of my job is going to meetings, taking notes, some in person, some remote. I love my iPad, as we discussed. I've got an iPad Pro 11-inch. I've already got a pencil for it, and I thought, what should I use to take notes? I do have my trusty notebook as well. I've got my A5 here in the UK, roughly sized notebook. And I do sometimes use that. I like to sketch and doodle. But I take a lot of notes. And I was like, what should I use? Because starting a new job, I want to have all my notes in one place. You have different groups of meetings, with different people. We might have one-to-ones or have project meetings or whatever it may be. So, and I was like, well, I've got a week. So what should I do, And I've used various things before. So I used to have a Kindle Scribe, which I did sell. I used to use a notebook. I've used Apple Notes before. I've used various other apps. I was like, well, what should I do? So I've been playing about with it for the last week or so just to try and work out what I want to do. And I'm not the best hand writer, and I am not a very artistic person, so I should probably set my stall out from that standpoint. So I've gone away and looked at various apps, and so I started with Apple Notes, which I quite like. Apple Notes, I think it's a great stock app. And I don't actually use Apple Notes that much on my phone. I largely use it if I'm, big table of people, I'm going to go and get the order of coffees in or cake or whatever it may be, and I make a note of what everybody wants, and I delete it. So for me, Apple Notes is very ephemeral notes. If I lost my notes database, there's probably like 10 things in it, the world would carry on. So I could use that. And then I was starting to look at other apps, because there are some great third-party apps out there, some which I've already bought as well, or would be happy to subscribe to. So at the moment, I'm thinking Apple Notes, probably not for me, and I'll come back to why, but it's got great organisation with the folders. Apple do work on Apple Notes every year, which is fantastic. Once they moved to the format we're in now, which I can't remember when that was, it feels like it was like 10 years ago, but they've kept just, moving it forwards, haven't they?
There's a lot in Apple Notes as well, as you say. There's the maths stuff where we'll work things out for you. You can do drawings as well. You can have notes on the side. They're exportable in a kind of limited way. And you can
put them in folders. I think it's dictation. It does tables. It does lists. It does checklists.
It scans. It'll scan documents in as well. It's searchable. Most things in Apple land don't search particularly well. Spotlight is a disaster on Tahoe, I got to say. But Apple Notes are generally pretty good. If you search in the right place, the default search wants you to search within Notes rather than across Notes, which continually catches me out and drives me crazy.
Same in Mac Finder. I always set that to search the whole Mac, not just the folder I'm in. So there's Apple Notes, and it's a good starting place, and it's probably what most people should use. And I think I do want notes where I can scribble, and if I want to have a typed note, it's nice to have that option as well, because it's something just to note. Then I've gone and looked at Agenda. I don't know if you've ever seen this app. It's quite a cool app. Typical note taking. Wants you more to be type based. Also wants to link with your calendar. Now I have struggled with this in the past. Because I use O365, and some companies don't let you link that with your Apple Calendar. And I don't know about my new company yet, and I will find out when I get there. So that can be problematic, just to have it link with your calendar if you have to use Outlook and you can't use the built-in calendar stuff. But it's quite a nice system, and you can categorize everything. And the way it works is you pay for it, and you can buy a lifetime one. The lifetime one's about £120, or you pay for it annually, which is £35, which I'm perfectly comfortable with. But it's a really nice app, and it's on all platforms. But they bring out new features all the time, and if you're an active subscriber, you get the new features. And I think that's quite a good way of doing it. And if you don't subscribe, I think you just get frozen at the version you're at. But it's a nice concept, and it's obviously linked to meetings, which is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to have groups of meetings. Some will be monthly, some will be weekly. And it's quite nice, but it's more based on typing than it is scribbling. So I'm not sure that's the right one for me, because I think my primary input is going to be using the pencil.
Yeah, so I have checked this out in the past, and I think I fell down at hurdle 1, which was the integration with the calendar, that this does expect you to integrate with the calendar for everything that you do. Yeah. So that was kind of a non-starter for me. That I don't often want notes to integrate with a calendar in that way. It's more of a reminder for me if I want integration with the calendar. Do this by next Tuesday. That kind of stuff is the way I want it to happen with my notes. I'm quite happy to write a meeting took place and whatever at the top of it, and then I can move that around if I want. But this kind of went a step too far for me by having that sort of deep integration. Now, I understand some people, it's absolutely what they're looking for note taking, but it was very much a step in the wrong direction for me, this app.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you there. It was too calendar centric for me as well, and not enough pencil based. I've then very briefly fired up Notion, which I think you've used more than me. But this is not an Apple Pencil based app at all, so it's probably not. I think it's an app I should definitely play with, especially some of the AI smarts and stuff. But it's not designed for the Apple Pencil at all. Which, when I'm in a meeting, I often rip my iPad off the keyboard, and I want to be holding it and scrolling on it.
So I love Notion. I've actually just re-upped for everybody at work for another year as well. So that's costing me over £1,000 a year at work, really, for Notion.
Wow.
For me and my staff, it is a fantastic app for note taking, for creating databases, for spinning up things, for working. If you don't want to put all your stuff into Microsoft Office or one of those things, you can come up with press releases, emails, manage customer relations. You can do all sorts of stuff with Notion. And it definitely isn't a scribble with a pencil app, but it does support Markdown.
Yep.
So I'm a big fan of Markdown. I use it for lots of things. So if we're doing like an email to our participants or something like that, we will often script it in Notion first, because we can put it as Markdown. It's very easy to put Markdown into an email. We don't use this very straightforward email system for bulk emailing lots of people, but Markdown is very, very useful for that we know it will format properly for everybody's email client, because everybody's either on Gmail or Outlook or something that will do that. And the ability to see who's written what, color code it, have word counts, all that kind of stuff, all within one app, works really, really well. But I completely agree, it's not for an Apple Pencil, but it is an absolutely terrific app.
Yeah, and it did look good, but I think for what my role is, and as my role is going to be predominantly working on my own on things, I don't think it's the right one for me. It's not not a collaborative sort of role that I'm going to be doing in that respect.
I would say it syncs really well as well. So between the iPad app and the desktop app, the syncing is almost instantaneous. So that should be something you think of. It depends how you think as well. I find a lot of people try and bend a note-taking app into working with their way of working, whereas some are just sort of more natural and flow with the way you want to work. And so far, everything you've said is you're looking for the thing that you wouldn't want to spend the time bending Notion to your work pattern. I don't think. For me, it's kind of the way I think. I want projects, I want notes within projects, and I want to go down the tree, follow the breadcrumbs till I get to the point where I want to do it. And the search is astounding. Okay. The fact that it bubbles to the top, your sort of 15 most recently worked on notes, which in a system like this works. But it's definitely the collaborative features that have worked as well for me as anyone. And my team love it as well. Even people who are tech averse love Notion, but I don't think it's right for the scenario you're talking about.
Yeah, I just wanted to try it, because I know you've mentioned it and a few others. I thought, I'll have a look at it. I don't think it's right for me, and I'm comfortable buying something. That's not a problem.
You get a lot with the free one as well. So I mean, there's no harm in trying, but you're not going to be able to just scribble with your Apple Pencil.
No, so I have got it on my iPad, so I can try it out, and maybe as as I get into my role, it might actually fulfill part of it. We'll see how it goes. And then the other app, and I've used this app before, so the app that I'm spent more time with is GoodNotes, and I've used this app a lot. And it's a really good app because you can create virtual notebooks and have a different color for the outside of the notebook and give it a name. Have different paper in it, so you can have lined paper, plain paper, and you can have them open in tabs, across the top, and they're constantly iterating on it. And I think this is where I'm going to go for my handwriting notes and have them all in there, so you can have a different book. If you've got a project, you could have a notebook for that project, and if you've got, I don't know, a one-to-one with a certain person, you could have a notebook for that. Or if you're going to a meeting that happens bi-weekly, so you could have a notebook for that. And that's quite nice because you can just flip back and see the notes from the previous meeting that you had. So I think this is the app I'm looking at the most at the moment. It integrates really well with the pencil, and they've just in the recent beta introduced type notes, which is something I do want, because sometimes I want to have a place to put office locations or websites or typed thoughts, and it's a new thing, so it's good they're doing type notes, but I want to see how that goes. You can just put a text box in a note as well, and there's a lot there. You can draw, uses all the Apple Pencil stuff. You have different weights, different pens, different colours. It's pretty neat. The highlight is very good. So I'm going to try this because it's probably a bit more akin to my physical notebook, and it's a good transition to me digitising. But it looks quite neat. I can't remember what I paid for it, but I did the lifetime subscription, I think. So actually, it wasn't too scary, and it works great on my iPad. But I can also read it on my, on my iPhone as well, which is kind of what I want. I want something that's predominantly on the iPad, but I can refer to it on my phone. I think that's the important part.
So I have used this. It's when I was trying to make myself use the Apple Pencil, it's what I used. My eldest daughter has gravitated to this as well. This is what she takes all of her notes in university. Whenever she's doing mind maps and things like that, this is what she used, and this is her seal of approval. She's very productive in it. She uses it for lots of things. I liked my experience when I had it, but I think because I'm more of a typing person is one of the reasons I settled on Notion, but I absolutely see the appeal of this. I think it's a great app.
It is fantastic. And I think they've got two sort of key markets. I think education, which is what your daughter will use it for, is huge for them. And then they've got more of the corporate space. You can also buy different templates and things. They've got a good marketplace, which I quite like to see. They've got their own marketplace where you can buy add-ons, which is quite nice, I think, and they're supporting that. So yeah, looks a good app, and that's what I'm going to go with at the moment. Obviously, I'll report back maybe in a month's time whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, or whether I've bounced off it and gone back to a piece of paper instead.
Should we blast through your next three very quickly?
Very quickly. So one that just came to me as you were talking about Markdown was Bear. I mean, if you click on the iPad at the top here, this was predominantly a Markdown one, but it also does written notes. So I'm going to take a look at that, but I think this is going to be predominantly a type one, whereas I think I want the inverse. I want a predominantly handwritten one that's got occasional type in it. But we'll check out Bear, because I always quite like the look of Bear. It's a very nice looking app and very thoughtfully done.
Yep. Microsoft OneNote.
Briefly just looked at this. It hasn't really moved on. I've got little appeal for doing more in Microsoft, as we've just discussed in the podcast, but I just thought I'd include it for completeness. But to be fair to Microsoft, I think they got there early with it, but they haven't really done a huge amount with it. It was a good platform 10 years ago, but hasn't really moved on.
Yeah, I think if you're all in Microsoft land, it may be the only choice you've got. That it synchronizes with Teams, it synchronizes with your OneDrive and all that kind of stuff. I don't trust it. It's lost my notes twice corporately for what we did, and considering I was trying to catalog meetings and ad hoc stuff with people when I was on calls with them, all the rest of it on there, and twice it's corrupted the database to an unrecoverable place. So I just don't trust Microsoft OneNote. I don't think it's a very stable app. There was a period where they were iterating really rapidly on it to incorporate handwriting recognition and turn it into text and all that kind of stuff, and they just seem to break it for me. It's not a great app.
No, I'm not going to go near it.
Yep, there we go. That was an easy decision, wasn't it? Notability.
Last one's Notability. I have played with this before. I've elected not to go anywhere near it, really. This was always more about transcription, which isn't what I want in a note-taking app. I don't want to record a whole meeting. I just want to make the points I want to write down. I don't need to record an entire meeting. But it looks quite good, and the interface looks nice. But this isn't for me either, but I did give it a go.
I think you can mark up PDFs in this, right?
Yeah, but now previews everywhere, which I did text you a while ago. I think I said, I can't believe we haven't had preview on iOS until now, and it's coming in iOS 26. But that's been fantastic for me. Files and preview is such a triumph.
Yeah, I think I've used Notability for that, for marking up PDFs before preview. But now that that's not a thing, I wouldn't look at it again. I mean, it's a very pretty app. I've forgotten the name of the Apple one that's meant to be syncing across all platforms as well, that we start trying to do on the podcast. There's that as well.
Thinking of Freeform.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that app just never really stuck with me, and I'm worried it's a side app for Apple. Are they going to can it at some point? That's my concern with something like Freeform. Whereas I want an app like GoodNotes or Notability, where it's their only business. They're going to be invested in it. Hopefully, people are paying to use it, and so it's worth them to keep adding to it, moving it forwards.
Yeah, people used to say that about the one that started all this, which again, it wasn't simple note. It was a green color icon that everybody was using for a little while.
Evernote.
Evernote was the note-taking app of choice for a very long period of time.
You know what? I wonder if that's still a thing.
No, remember we talked about it on the podcast. It got sold off to some weird Brazilian company or something, and was kind of going away.
Yeah, it's kind of gone downhill, hasn't it?
Yeah, Evernote was the daddy of note-taking apps for a long time, wasn't it? No, I think I endorse your choices here. The one you've picked particularly that seems to be your front runner is GoodNotes, which, like I say, from my experience, my personal experiences, and certainly what my daughter's come back to me and said, I think is the most compatible with what it is that you're going to do, and the most flexible for going forward. Should you sort of want a note-taking app, a library app that's more for a team, Notion is definitely worth a look at that point. But for what you got in mind for the next couple of weeks, I'm with you on GoodNotes.
Yeah, I think hopefully I've made the right call, and I've already got all the hardware I need. I've got my iPad Pro, which I bought ages ago. It's 11-inch, and I got the Pencil Pro that goes with it, that clips on. That's been fantastic. I have also been trying it on an iPad Mini. I've got an old iPad Mini without a home button, and with the Apple Pencil 2. The Apple Pencil 2, what a fantastic pencil that is. And it's years old now, that pencil. But the Mini works really well as a just note-taking device. So that's what I'm playing with at the moment. The only problem, I think, with the Mini, the first Mini without the home button is iPadOS 26 is very slow on it. So I'm not sure whether I don't know whether I'm going to keep both iPads or move the Mini along, because it's a little on the slow side. But the iPad Pro is fantastic with it. And the 11-inch is, I think, the right size.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think my iPad is the bigger one. It's too big. I don't even carry the pencil. In fact, he said, I've got my pencil lying here on the desk. It's not even attached to the side of the iPad.
I think I would want the bigger one if I use my iPad for working, but for note-taking, PDF markup, the little one is perfect, and for doing the newspaper and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair enough. Should we do an app of the week?
Yeah, let's do it.
So my app of the week this week is Docker, which as I was looking back for apps I thought I'd talked about, I actually thought I'd already talked about.
Yeah,
Docker,
I was going to say, I think you've done this before, but obviously you haven't.
No, I've talked about things that access Docker. I've talked about Portainer, and I've talked about Harbor for the iPad and the iOS, but never actually Docker itself. And that's remiss of me, so I think it's probably worth mentioning. So Docker is a containerization service that lets you run lots of little things without it really being very demanding on the hardware that it's running on. So my Docker server, which is a Linux PC that I've got kicking around in a cupboard somewhere, I think it's running 15 Docker containers or more at this point without it really impacting the CPU. I think it uses about 8% of CPU. One of them gets a bit higher when I run Plex, or it's transcoding for Plex or Jellyfin. But other than that, it's running all of these things on one device, and it's barely breaking a sweat. So it just shows the efficiency of the containers that it runs on. Docker runs on just about anything. I also run it on a Raspberry Pi at the moment, just to see what impact that would have on it. And again, it barely breaks a sweat, so it means you can run lots of containers on even something as energy efficient as a Raspberry Pi. It only uses a couple of watts power then when you're doing it. If you run it on your Mac, it's not the best interface to it. It kind of runs a virtual machine with the Docker containers inside the virtual machine, which isn't very good. So you've got sort of an extra resource headache on a Mac. It's better on Windows because it can use Windows subsystem for Linux to run the Docker containers inside of that. But Linux is absolutely the way to do this. And it's not, it looks complicated. You write what's called YAML files, yet another markup language files, and you define what your containers look like and what runs within that. But it's actually fairly straightforward to get things up and running with it.
I think you've just confirmed my preconception of Docker was that it just works exceptionally efficiently at, having these containers and having lots of containers that do different things, and it doesn't just, max out the CPU and that. So this is something that's still on my list to play with, and I really must get around to it.
You really must get around to it, because what it's able to do with not a lot of resources is really quite impressive. So just for listeners and viewers, there's a really great resource called linuxserver.io, which is where you can download some Docker containers from. And just to give you an idea, I'm scrolling, I'm trying to find something just to give you an idea. So let's say you wanted to run something like DuckDNS, which is a DNS application where if you don't want to buy a URL, then this is a free URL effectively that it will give you, and you can point your containers at this rather than having to buy chrispierce.com. If that's something you had, you can spin up a free DuckDNS instance and run your home services from that. So if you wanted to provide access to your network to a URL rather than to an IP address and have that dynamic, so chrispierce.duckdns.org or whatever it would give you. I'll leave it to the imagination of the users, of the listeners to find what that is. DuckDNS lets you do this. It's an entirely open source. It's amazing to me that these things are free. But to spin up a container that gives you access to DuckDNS is just, for the viewers, these lines of code. So you run Docker server, you have a text file called docker-compose.yml. With this in it, you obviously do a little bit of configuration for what your stuff within this is, but that's all you need to pull down a whole container that would run a pointer to this service. And I just think that's incredible.
Yeah, you've got me going through the list now, seeing what I can do. Maybe this is how I need to start, is get one that's pre-configured, and then I can kick the tires on it. So this actually looks really good.
It is fairly straightforward. So I'd start with something like a Jellyfin or something like that. If you want to run something inside of your home network, this is a good place to start. But there's plenty to choose. And this isn't all of the Docker containers. Obviously, Docker Hub, which is Docker themselves maintain that as well. There's lots of them around. But this is quite a good way of seeing the kinds of things that you can run inside of a Docker container. And there are many, as you'll see.
Yeah, you're sending me on a wild goose chase now.
It's not a wild goose chase. There's a point to it.
No, it's fair. I'm being facetious, but no, it looks really good. I should check it out.
Thing of the week.
Thing of the week. What did I put for thing of the week? Oh, I bought a cleaning kit. I just was looking for paper-like screen protectors for my iPad, and they do a little cleaning thing. I thought, actually, this looks kind of cool. So it's just a little spray in like a cloth, not quite hexagonal shaped tube. So you spray it, and then you use it to wipe it. Actually does a really good job of cleaning your iPad or your Mac screen. So I picked up one of those because my wife's laptop was not pretty, and that needed doing, and where I'm using my iPad a lot, I thought this would be neat. And it's just a little thing I can lob in my bag, and so I was just grabbing it, and it's really well packaged. Just really nice. There you go.
Does it come like a microfiber cloth?
No, so this case is the microfiber cloth.
Ah.
So you got the spray and then the microfiber cloth wrapped in it. You just do that across the iPad with it, and then it's got a little plastic case that it all sits in. I just thought it was quite neat, and I thought I'd try one of those. And it's just quite nice design. So there you go.
And more eco-friendly than disposable wipes.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, want something reusable. So I thought I'd give that a go. And apparently, you can do 500 cleaning sessions, which sounded pretty good.
There you go. I think we can call it a show, Chris.
Yeah, I think so. So if anyone wants to get in contact, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. He's also on Blue Sky, where he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I'm on Mastodon, and I'm at _CGP at mastodon.social. You can watch on YouTube by going to the website and clicking on the YouTube link, or you can drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.